And that is the most hilarious thing
What?
to have.
I thought about that.
Here we go.
Hi, everybody. So, this is the second one of our My Dinner With, and this one is Our Dinner With. It's sort of a double date, and so the way that this works is that we eat and we talk, and everybody else just watches. So, if you've ever watched My Dinner with Andre
We
or
torture them.
Anthony Bourdain, this is one of those shows, where you get to watch us eat food. And wish that you were here. But truly, I wish you all were here. And this is our guests in their home. This is Fred, Stella, and Teresa Thome. And man, there's so much. I hope you've all read the stuff that we wrote. But there's so much more to you guys than what everybody thinks they know. So we hope to get to the good stuff today. And this is not a foodie show, but we do want to talk a little bit about food and maybe have a toast to begin with, and then just like if we were at a restaurant. I have to say that none of us have all been together in one place,
No.
probably ever, and so. And I imagine that everybody thinks that we're all really social and that we just go everywhere and hang out with everybody, and that there's just like this amazing community that we hang out with. And we do belong to an amazing community,
Yes,
but
true.
we just don't hang out enough. And now we hang out even less. So, I'm admiring your dishes, actually.
I was too.
And loving the color, and we're
They're
talking
pretty.
about our kitchen being in those kinds of
Mhm.
colors. But do you guys want to talk about your food? And it looks like you have a red here today.
We
so-
do. Why don't we
We have
start with the toast then?
All right.
Okay,
Fred can
that's
offer,
good.
who's gonna offer the toast?
Oh, I think Fred should. He has the best voice.
Well, let's raise our.
And the oldest wine.
And the oldest one. It's the one he left out yesterday.
That usually means it's good.
No,
It's vintage.
it's been open for
Alright.
a couple weeks.
Yeah. So anyway, I would like to raise my glass in honor of this august assembly, Ted, Kate, and my lovely wife Teresa. And I just hope for the very best of health and a fabulous rest of the 2020 for all of us. We need it.
Yes.
Salute.
Yes. Salud.
I have every faith that it's going to get better. Mm.
I got that.
I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we like really good food, but we are not eating the best of it tonight because we're just doing leftovers.
But it's really good leftover food.
It's goodish.
Yeah.
I made,
Goodish?
it's goodish. I quick whipped up because I was like, oh, I should probably have a little more food. So I quick whipped up a carrot salad. I don't even know what it
I
is.
love those.
I just kind of made it up. Yeah, it's good. It's got mustard and apple cider vinegar and salt, pepper, and parsley. It's good. And then this is my leftovers from last night, which is basically gluten-free pasta with just a Trader Joe's vegetable medley that I doctored up. And then
And
tell them the exciting food you're eating.
well, do you folks know about a woman named Jyoti in East Grand Rapids who she runs a kitchen out of her home?
No.
No.
Yeah, this is true. Did you call it Jyoti's Kitchen?
Mhm.
Yeah. And she's on Berwick in East Grand Rapids, and I think it's only 3 days a week that she serves food. It's a limited menu. It's like, okay, tonight you've got, A, B, or C. Take your pick. And we've become customers in the age of COVID. So you just call your order in and you pick it up. She does a phenomenal job. And what's amazing is I never go to the house. There's a real slim time frame that you have to pick up between 5:30, I believe it is.
Mhm.
And there are always just a lot of people there getting their food.
With masks.
With masks, yes. And it is, it's quite acceptable. So this is a leftover chana dish, meaning garbanzos. I've not actually had this before. It's with a brown sauce. And I'm having it instead of rice tonight.
Because he's on camera. He decided.
And it would be the best visual to eat it with ramen noodles instead.
Oh,
So it's
makes
it's
perfect
really
sense,
fun
right?
food.
That's an amazing little story. I like stuff like that. So what's the name again? So we're gonna always shout out to everything.
What's her name?
Jyoti, Jyoti's Kitchen. Jyoti means light,
Yeah.
spiritual
That's
light that
beautiful.
means in meditation. So there you go. Jyoti's Kitchen in East Grand
Check it out.
Rapids. I believe she has a Facebook presence, correct?
Yeah, it's like a private group. I'll actually send it to you if you guys are interested.
Yeah. So all you out there who don't live around here, East Grand Rapids is a suburb right nearby us. So we will be going to meet her and hanging out with our masks pretty soon.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And I should point out before we turn it over to your fine meal, the wine that I'm drinking from the fresh bottle opened 20 minutes ago. Unlike the wine Fred is drinking that we opened 2 weeks ago and forgot to finish because we're not heavy drinkers. But he will not throw anything away. This is from his niece. She sells clean wine. So it's like a
No sulfite, no sulfites. Everything organic. No additives. Natural sugars.
It's really. I actually when I'm drinking it, I don't get buzzy really quick, and I feel decent. I like it. It's good.
Yeah. So it's called, the line is called Scout and Cellar. Cellar as like a root cellar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Scout as in boy or girl. And you can find them online, and they're reasonably priced. And we're not drinking it just because my niece sells it, or just because it's clean. We're drinking it because we really, really like it. And all of those other things are just added benefits. Sometimes we like a nice dirty wine, though.
Yeah. I don't like a dirty one.
No, we don't.
Ted and I decided to do Moroccan tonight. So it's, that we like to cook a lot. And I'm really, really, really glad that Ted likes to cook, because even though I do enjoy it, a lot of times I just don't feel like it. If it were up to me, there would be some nights when everybody would just be eating popcorn or a bowl of cereal because I've just been done with the day. I'm like, you're on your own, or here, have this lovely bowl of, Cheerios or something. But I do really like a lot of different flavors, because I get bored with the same old thing every night, for eating. So we like to mix it up and do a lot of different world foods and try flavors. So tonight we're doing something kind of Moroccan, and Ted always loved this recipe that I did with acorn squash. And it originally is with couscous, but like your pasta, we want to try to be gluten-free. So I switched the couscous for quinoa. And it has a good texture, and I toasted it so there's a little bit of a nutty flavor, and it works really, really well. So for this, it's got really pretty simple seasonings. It's like garlic, salt, pepper, and a lot of cumin. But there are vegetables in it. Like we got carrot, celery, chickpeas. We have chickpeas in there. We got garbanzos in there, and then like some chicken broth or chicken stock to simmer it all in and cook it down in to soften the quinoa. But what's kind of fun is that at the bottom of the squash, like you bake your squash first, and then I put in a little bit of butter and brown sugar, and then put in the stuffing. Then you serve it. So as you're eating down, you kind of get the spicy, and then you get a little bit of that sweet and buttery, which I love, which is something different. You know, it's just
Yeah.
different flavors, and I really
Mm.
appreciate different flavors. But we're doing all vegetarian tonight, which is I think we need to explore more vegetarian options simply because okay, I'm cheap. I think we're cheap, but I'm cheap for sure. I'll speak for myself. And the prices of meat have been really outrageous, and I can't buy it sometimes. Even, you know, it's just the principle. It's like some of the it's a plain old hamburger, a really cheap meat that's just crazy amounts for it. So we've been doing more vegetarian, which I think our hearts and our bodies appreciate too. But then Ted, you made
Mhm.
the fake pulled pork.
So I have to say about vegetarian stuff um, that I'm the kind of guy that goes out to Save a Lot and Family Fare and looks for um, almost post-dated meat. And so anything that looks like it's about to go, I'll eat. And so I think of it as aged. Um,
It scares me sometimes.
but
We do it.
we haven't killed any of our
No,
kids yet.
we haven't been
We
sick
let them try it
yet.
first. And then I don't know if you can see this, but this is
Mhm.
tagine, which is which is sort of a generic word for a stew. And so I love what they call maruzia or lamb tagine. But this is, and it looks exactly like a pulled pork or a lamb. Um, this is, it has the same texture and everything. I don't know if you can see it,
Mhm.
but this is jackfruit in
Mhm.
brine.
Mhm.
And jackfruit makes the best pulled pork. And people can't even tell it. So, but I wanted to try it as a lamb today, and so this is just another reason why you guys just have to come over sometime. Because we really like to cook, and we really like to cook for people. Um, but um, but we used to have a spice company called Stella, and
Oh
so we
yeah.
used to
Yeah.
we
Remember?
used to make
Years
different
ago.
spices and different spice blends and curries, and I just love the metaphor of curries, as well as the entire African side of the Mediterranean.
Yeah, I've been cooking during COVID like
Crazy.
crazy. Like I haven't cooked this much in forever, and doing different flavor profiles, which has been really fun.
Fun.
Like buying something as like I'm not a huge cook, so buying something like thyme and like going online and going, okay, what kind of flavors go with thyme, and what kind of foods can you eat using that spice? And it's really been fun to
Mhm.
kind of explore, and he's enjoyed it.
For
Feeling
those of you who don't know and aren't fans of Teresa, when she says she's been home a lot cooking, that's a pretty rare thing. I mean, every time I turn on my Facebook, your little airplane is going somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, and so
I know it's
um,
going someplace again at the end of this month.
oh, well,
Mm.
Right.
tell our guests what you do, because I did say you guys are in the entertainment industry, and I don't want them to think that you're pole dancers. Well, actually, I do, but you do so much more than that.
So much more.
Yeah,
Oh
and
yeah.
especially
Well,
tell us about your foot too, and how that's doing.
Oh yeah.
my foot's doing much better, much better. Today was a bum day, but it's okay. I get puzzles that I can do that keep me off my foot, so that's my distraction.
And thank you for assisting in
Oh
her
yeah, with my
healing.
knee scooter, that made such a difference. Thank you so much. It's crazy. I never in a million years would have thought it was going to take this long to heal this thing. The doctor, when I first kind of explained what was going on, when we were just talking on the phone, he was like, I want you on 2 weeks. Don't put any pressure on it for sure. And then you can, start trying. And I was like, I'm going to be walking in a week. What the heck is he talking about? 2 months before I started walking. Yeah.
Really?
It was insane.
Wow.
It was insane.
Oh,
I
geez.
sprained it in 3 different places.
Oh
So,
my God.
For each step that you missed.
yeah, exactly. So,
Oh.
anywho, on the mend now. But I do travel and live between LA and Grand Rapids. That's been doing that since 2015. So,
Mhm.
This year, not so much. I mean, I've been here since March.
So now that you've been stuck at home, has it been kind of nice though, in a way? I mean, not to be moving around so much. I know that for us, we, especially in the summer, we would do a lot of traveling. And now it's, it's like almost every weekend we'd be going somewhere. Not at all this year. And on the one hand, I miss it. I miss all the people that we would see and visit and the things that we would do. On the other hand, it's like, wow, I really, really needed this break and this space. And there's so many things here just in the house that we've needed to work on and have a chance to kind of calm down and regroup and think through things and make plans for things. So it's, for me, it's been kind of a relief and kind of nice. I mean, I don't like the reasons for why we're all in, but I really have appreciated having time with everybody here, with my kids and with Ted, and not feel like I'm so stressed running around all the time everywhere. It's been really pleasant. I really enjoyed it.
I was so happy. We were in the middle of a kitchen renovation when all this started. So
that's right. And then they didn't come over. Maybe you were like stuck.
No. Shelter at home. They ripped out our entire kitchen, and then I just got the text that just went, sorry.
Camping.
Are you kidding me? It was total camping. And then we would load all of our dishes into a laundry basket and take them across the street, and our neighbor let us hand wash them in her sink. I mean,
oh God. I've washed dishes in a bathtub before.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Well, and that's what I said to him. I'm like, well, I guess we'll just watch him in the bathtub. He's like, no. So.
No, I mean, I would if we had to.
You could clean the bathtub.
It was just as easy.
Yeah. It was, yeah, we had a great neighbor, so she let us do that. But I think after close to 2.5 weeks, we lived without a sink. And then I finally just called him and was like, this is a safety hazard. This is crazy. We need to. And he was like, we're already thinking that way. So up until I fell, which was from March, shelter in place was like March 21st or March 15th or something like that, to June 9th when I fell. I decided, we had the kitchen renovation, but I'm like, I'm going to paint the kitchen to save us a ridiculous quote. They quoted us $1,500 for my kitchen, which is insane.
Wait, to paint it?
Yeah, that was insane.
Just to paint it?
Yeah, that was insane. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, because I do painting. I paint a lot.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
right.
Either that or I'm super cheap when
she paints whole neighborhoods for $1,500.
Let me add it. I have too much fun, I guess. I won't charge enough. Wow, that's crazy.
Well, so I did that all myself, and then we've been cleaning out the basement, and we've been doing lots of home projects, but
yeah, that's kind of nice.
So, Fred, you're in the entertainment industry too, and when I met you many, many, many years ago, you had a singing telegram company.
Yes.
And all of my friends, every single one of my friends worked for you except for me, because you probably heard me sing before. But I want to know what that has morphed into for you. Obviously, I just said you have the voice. That's probably a big part of what you do. And for our friends who are out there, you've probably heard his voice before, because how many books have you read?
Yeah.
I still do own the Grand Rapids Singing Telegram. As a matter of fact, just today, mutual friend Mary Rademacher came over, and she picked up directions and a telegram certificate and all of that. And she went out and did a socially distanced telegram, 40th birthday, in the North End. And so, yes, when the telegram has existed since 1980, and I purchased it in 83. And at the time, it represented the largest percentage of my income. Business was crazy busy, unbelievably busy. On a weekend, I could be sending out, a dozen different telegrams in a night, maybe. And I had a couple of performers who actually made their living doing nothing but telegrams. A lot of them, they just did it part-time. But if they had a telegram that was really popular, or they could do several different kinds of acts, they would work consistently enough that they wouldn't have to do anything. Well, those days are no longer, and things have sort of flipped. So I was doing commercial acting at the time, back in the 80s and 90s, but it would represent this much income, and the telegram would be this, and now it's like this. So the telegram now is a bit of a sideline, but I still love doing it. I love people calling, being excited because it's their sister's birthday or their fiance's birthday, and they want to do something special. They want to embarrass them. They want people to laugh. In this world of everything that's being thrown at us, it's a fun little thing. It's a fun little way to bring a little joy into somebody's heart. And
What's the most? Oh, I'm sorry.
Huh?
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I wondered what the most popular one is. You said like to embarrass people or something. I mean, right now.
The most, hands down, the most popular kind of telegram is the nerd. And a nerd would be, so for instance, we send boys to girls and girls to boys as a rule. And so,
Does it say traditionally?
let's say it was Ted's birthday, and you wanted to surprise him with a nerd. And so if you called and that's what you decided you wanted, then once we found out that we had somebody who was available at the day and time you want, I would question you about Ted's high school days. And if you didn't know Ted, did you know Ted during his high school days? Okay.
No, I'm a latecomer to his life.
So
I would have been in jail. I would have been in jail if
I've heard some stories. Yeah, but I was not there. I wasn't present for them.
Okay. Well, you would have to somehow find interesting stuff about those days, where he went, the name of the high school. Yeah, the name of the teacher. Was he involved in any extracurricular activities? Who did he date? All of those things. Well, this lady would come to the door. She's a fright, with the taped up glasses, the clothes that are mismatched that he bought from Goodwill. And she comes in and she makes it look like she was a classmate. Ted never noticed her, but she has been in love with him all these years, and she's going to drop all of these tidbits like, don't you remember me and when we were in Mr. Smith's biology class? And if she says he was in Mr. Smith's biology, then he really did have Mr. Smith. All right, whatever name you give us. And she just would go into this incredible act about being in love with him and wanting to take him out. And then she would sing a medley of songs in a birthday theme. And Teresa was a female nerd.
Did you do that? How fun.
I made good money.
Yeah.
I was a stripping nerd. I used to strip. So the strip pole is not far off, Ted.
Just for practice.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I remember.
I was not trying to turn anybody on. And I was not.
No, a stripping nerd would strip down to something very similar, like long johns, boxer shorts, a t-shirt, usually a bra stuffed with toilet tissue over the. So yeah, you'd have to be a pretty sick puppy to get turned on by that.
Although it happened once.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. Oh God.
I think
So you have a nerd. You have a nerd stalker now. Is that what you?
it was like a 75-year-old guy, and I sat down. And I was like, oh no, this is not right. No.
Just kind of back away out of that situation.
I was like, oh God. I mean, you meet all types doing it, but.
This is true.
Oh my God.
Yeah. We were planning our first trip together as a couple to Italy. I'd been before, but I'd never taken her, which is the land of my family. And it was coming up, and we were making plans. And at the time, you know, she was doing it. She also, you were working at CMC at the time? Yeah. And she wasn't making a great deal of money.
GRTV, WYC.
Yeah. And so, no kidding, in a matter of a few weeks apart, 2 telegrams came in that were from way up. I think one was in Baldwin and one was somewhere else that was way far away. And naturally, we charge up the wazoo if we have to send somebody a long distance. Those 2 telegrams paid for her flight.
Oh my God. Totally worth it.
Sorry, I just saw Turk said hi, guys. So that's fun, so people can comment.
Oh.
If Turk was here.
I'm glad you have your nerd glasses because I can't see anything.
He said Victor. Yeah.
Gosh.
So Fred, I mean, I know you in so many other aspects. Probably a lot of people who know us from other things don't know, A, that I'm a minister and that you're a minister. I mean, you are like, I think I have most of my minister jobs from you, from,
Yeah.
you know, referrals
Yeah.
from you. But we're not really what most people think of when they think of as ministers.
No.
And also, we are in a lot of Christian-based churches and stuff, and so that whole aspect of my life that that we actually share is something that, like, if you know me from political stuff, or if you know me from other things like maybe steampunk or whatever, you probably don't know that on Sundays and here on Crowdcast too now. That we are ministers and we are we don't thump Bibles, but we definitely are what I think of as storytellers. I think that of you as a storyteller, and so
Yeah.
so you also are you do that a lot. But if you could explain in what capacity you actually
Sure.
do that.
So I am what is known as a Pracharak, and a Pracharak is a Sanskrit word, and it can be translated a few different ways. It can mean lecturer, it can mean missionary, a couple of other things. But we translate it at the West Michigan Hindu Temple as outreach minister. And the post is unique, I believe, if not unique, rare, because in Hindu temples, the priests who are in charge of the spiritual life of the temple, they don't do what Protestant ministers, Catholic priests, rabbis, and imams at mosques do. By that I mean, part of the job, if you're going to be a rabbi, a minister, etc., you, aside from whatever happens on your day of worship, whether it's Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, you also are connected to the community to some degree. Hindu priests, as a rule, are not. They are in the temple. They perform the ceremonies. Usually, now this is changing a little bit, but usually they are not teachers of their tradition the way imams and rabbis and pastors are. And so when the West Michigan Hindu Temple opened 11 years ago, there was this understanding that there was a need for someone to connect with the community, and to connect with the community in the same way that an imam or a pastor or a rabbi might do that. And to also be a teacher of the tradition in the same way that if there's a class on world religions at Calvin or Grand Valley, and they want to learn about Judaism, they're going to call a synagogue and have a rabbi come over. Well, if you called the West Michigan Hindu Temple and there was no Pracharak, they probably wouldn't help you very much, because the priest, many of the priests who come over from India, don't even have the eloquence in English to be able to do this. So my job as Pracharak, I like to say my job is to bring the community into the temple and the temple into the community. So I am the one, if Calvin or Aquinas or a high school or a middle school calls, and they either want a lecture on site, on their site, or they would like a tour of the temple, I would do that. I also do pastoral work and counseling. All of the chaplains who are in charge of the hospitals in the area, they have my phone number, my contact information. If somebody's in the hospital and they say, I want to talk to a Hindu. And I also do wedding ceremonies, much more scaled down than if anybody who's watching has ever been to a traditional Hindu wedding. They're massive. They are beyond any expectation. They last several days. The ceremony itself is very long. I do a scaled down version that looks very Protestant as far as choreography, but is Hindu in terms of its theology. So that's kind of sort of what I do on the side.
You know, I thought about you today because, well, not just because of this, but I was way out toward Alto, and I drove by the Hindu temple. And I remembered years ago that I went along with the high school group to come visit the Hindu temple. And I saw you there, and I thought that was such a great experience for those kids. That first of all, the teacher had me come in to talk about earth religions. She said, so make it like feel not so scary to be coming in and talking about witchcraft or something. No, it's earth religions, which it is, but that really encompasses a lot. And that particular day, though, they were going to go out to the Hindu temple, and I'm like, I want to ride along because I really wanted to see that. And I was always so surprised when you come into that place. It looks kind of like a pole barn, I mean, it looks very utilitarian. There's no kind of fancy adornment or anything that would give you any kind of clue as to what was inside of that place. And I was just in awe looking at the altars of the gods and the goddesses that were there. It really was moving. And I think that, I don't know if there are certain days that's open that general public can come and see
yes,
that.
absolutely.
Because I mean, that even if whatever religion you are, I think that when you go into a place in that space like that, I mean, you can feel the energy there and the beauty there. And it was just, I love it. I mean, I could just go there all the time and wish it were a little bit closer for me, but it was really, really beautiful. I really loved it. I in particular loved I remember the Lakshmi altar in particular. We've been talking about Lakshmi lately. So it was kind of, it made me remember that. And it's just a beautiful place.
Thank you. And by all means, whenever the temple is open, people can go in. And people are always asking me, like, what is the protocol? They're so concerned about offending, and which is nice, but really, there's not much to tell. You take off your shoes in the vestibule, right? And don't bring a Big Mac into the temple.
No, that would be rude.
And you got it covered. I mean, that's it. And there are priests who are always on duty when we're open, and they're more than happy to answer any questions that you have. And yes, I will.
But they're closed right now, right? With COVID, or are they?
No, they're not. No, they have very, very strict rules.
Teresa, I didn't think about that.
You have to have a mask. They've limited their capacity. I mean, I can't remember what it is right now, but it's something like 20 people, and it's a large enough space.
It is big.
They insist on social distancing, and they get you through. Like if it's a holiday, people come in dribbles, if you will, and they get you through fast. You have to understand that a significant number of our members are physicians. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot of Indians in this country are physicians, and
Yes.
most of them are at the temple. So they are even more conservative about COVID protocol than other people, because they see.
That's good
Yeah.
though. How do you feel about like somebody say who is not Hindu, but relates to one of the gods or goddesses or something? If they happen to come there, or if they want to leave an offering or something, I mean, is
That's
that
not a problem. No, nobody asks for your membership card when you come in. Not a bit.
You know, I have this memory of years ago in my past life with a previous husband that obviously didn't make the cut.
Not the trophy husband.
Not the trophy husband that I'm about. But we went to Nashville, and of all places, they have that temple with Athena in it. It's like this whole remade thing that's to scale of what it was in Greece thousands of years ago. And I remember being in there, and I desperately wanted to leave an offering to the goddess. And I think it was because the company I was keeping at the time that I didn't dare. Plus, there were lots of guards around and everything, which just kind of threw off the energy of it.
Yeah.
But I had, I don't know what is it about guards. Like I even go to art museums and the guards will follow me around because I'm one of those obnoxious people. As an artist, I want to know, how did they paint that? What is that painted on? What's that brushstroke? And I'm like my face is up in the art and I'm looking like around behind to see what is this a wood? Is this canvas? And all of a sudden the guards are like, why is she looking at how that's attached to the wall? You know? And I end up getting followed no matter what. I was like, I swear to God, I'm not going to steal anything or do any damage. I'm just, I want to know these things.
We do have a statue out of that.
What-
So, Teresa, because we're talking about being ministers and stuff, and Kate is also a minister, and she also
Yes.
can be found preaching and doing the witch evangelizing, which is really important.
Yeah.
But to like the Ladies Literary Guild or to the Women's City Club and places like that. But you too, because it's not unusual for me to follow Fred. It's like they're like, well, we had another brown guy here last week, and it's usually Fred. And then, I was there, I think, right at Unity Church, right after you had preached there,
Mhm.
and they don't want me anymore. We're pretty much because your
Wait, what?
story was better than your stories was totally better than mine. And my friend Charles over there just
Mhm.
loved you to death. Yeah. But do you do that regularly now, or
I mean, they asked me to come back, but I canceled because of COVID. And it was like
Yeah.
they wanted,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
they canceled
They
because of COVID. So
Yeah,
it was the timing. And because I live in LA part time, it's hard to commit because I don't always know what my schedule is going to be.
But she was awesome. She was
Yeah.
awesome.
Well,
That was the first time I had done something like that. But it was so funny. The thing that made me say, yeah, he's been wanting me to do it forever to share a Sunday message with people. And the thing that made me kind of feel like I could do it is I got into this habit of watching old Waltons episodes, the Waltons. And John Ritter was the minister in the Waltons. I don't know if you remember this, but
Yep.
I used to watch the Waltons.
I love the Waltons. I rewatched them in LA.
Little House on the Prairie. And
Yeah. I kind of rewatched Little House on the Prairie, but that Nellie Olsen one.
No.
I can't do it. And anyway, in one of the episodes, John Ritter had to go out of town or something, and so he asked John Boy to be the minister for that weekend. And John Boy was like, I can't do this. And he went, John Boy, you're a writer. You can tell a story that's, and you're a spiritual person, you can do this. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I am a writer. I can do this. So to me, it's comes from my, you talk about being a storyteller. That's where it's born of. So I feel like John Boy gave me permission to be a
I
spiritual.
love that.
Yeah.
I love that. We talk about things like that a lot, where people look for signs or messages, or open a book, open the Bible, or whatever. But so much of it can be found in pop culture, or it can be found watching your favorite movie, and all of a sudden it's like it's talking right to you, and it's kind of strange sometimes. But I think, and I'm sure you relate to this as a writer, stories are alive. It's not like, I think that when, even as you're writing, even if you're writing about something very personal, sometimes it's if it has this life of its own, that just you channel it instead of it being coming from you. It's like this weird thing out in the world that says that, hey, people need to hear this, they need to know this, they need to feel this, and you are the vessel that has to bring it to them. And
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
when it's crazy though, you can be watching something, so a sitcom or something just really random, and all of a sudden it's just, whoa, that just talked right to me and
Yeah.
my problem that I had at the time. And I love that, because stories are alive. I really feel like they're this elemental thing sometimes, and they're alive. And I've thought about, because I went to see your Warm Cheese years ago
Years ago, totally different.
Tell everybody what warm cheese is.
okay, just a minute. I think it was a Aquinas Library.
Yeah, you saw the
Wow.
the very first
That
iteration.
was the
I was like one of
first
the your first run-throughs.
Yeah,
with that.
first public appearance with
I
that,
know that your Warm Cheese, you call it Warm Cheese, the show that you do about, speaking about your relationship with your mother, and these things that she went through and you went through, your observations, your feelings about it, and you do it with such amazing humor. And I can always feel through your stories that really, really deep and intense emotion that's coming through, and the things that you went through, they weren't funny. At the time they weren't funny. They hurt, and they were deep, and they cut, and they're emotional, and it's just this powerful thing. And I almost feel like I'm going to tear up just thinking about it. I probably need more wine or less. Bring it on. I'm such an emotional person anyway, but when you speak about that, and it's so real, and you bring this humor to it, like this way that you're able to cope with it. And when we saw you just before everything shut down, and you were talking about your dad and your last moments with your dad, I mean, I was just like, God, it really hit me. And you spoke about it with this grace, and with this humor, and with love that was inspiring, because your perspective on life, you can tell the strength and the depth of who you are. I mean, people are able to maybe laugh, but it's almost like it's a gift you give them to sort of break that tension, to break that feeling. It's this gift that is like, this is real and this is hard, but I'm going to give you this. I want to share this with you, but I'm not going to let you leave feeling horrible. I want you to understand that there's beauty in this pain, and there's beauty in this life, even in these really intense, difficult, deep, dark spaces. And I think that when I hear your stories, you just have this amazing gift to tell these things. And I just hope that you never stop writing, never stop speaking, because you bring so much to people, especially now, especially when everybody is feeling the tension of this world and of relationships, So I
God
value
bless you. You need to be
value
my
so
Yes.
much. And now I'm going to drink some more wine. like, so we want to
Cheers to you, okay? I
cheers to you.
It's such a different show now. I hope you come back and see it again.
You know, we
It's just remarkable. You know about her winning the award in New York? She
Yes.
yes, but you should share that actually.
Yes,
Yeah.
tell us though. I know, but nobody else knows.
Die about it. So the name of of this event, it's a month-long event, and it's specifically solo storytelling theatrical performance. That's it. It's called United Solo. It's a major thing out there, and you get people
In New York.
in New York. You get A-listers who perform along with the B and C listers. So, for instance, Billy Crystal, Cynthia Nixon, Ed Asner. You have that caliber of actor and writers who are participating. And Teresa was chosen to perform Warm Cheese there this last October. And so we went to New York City, and she performed it there. And then several weeks later, we find out that she had won the award of Best Script.
Wow.
And of the entire festival.
Of the whole thing.
Over
100 performances, 100 shows.
Yeah, more than 100 different writers and performers. And it was just...
It was insane.
Yes.
It was insane. It was so funny because they had sent me an email and said, "Are you coming to the award ceremony?" And I was like, "No." Well, that's nice. Like, why are they asking me? Like, I'm like, they must be desperate for people to attend this thing. I'm like, I'm already back in Michigan or LA or wherever I was.
You're in Michigan.
I was in Michigan. I'm like, no, thank you. And he's like, well, I need you to RSVP. And I was like, oh, okay. So I just said no. And then we're in Florida, and I get an email from the head of the thing the day after the award ceremony. And I'm reading the list of all the people who won the awards, and it's like Best Actor, Ed Asner, and honorable mention for Asif Manvi, who was somebody, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's all these famous people, whatever. I'm gonna go through, and all of a sudden it's this Best Script, and I was like, what? It was Warm Cheese, and I was like, and he was out. I think you were at the pool.
No, I was sitting at a table.
No, you were not, because no, you were not.
She
there.
reenacted it for you, Fred.
Don't argue.
You were there because then when you came in, were you sitting at the table? Maybe
Yes, I was. Thank you.
He was.
Vindicated.
So he was sitting at the table, but I jumped.
She jumped.
I don't jump. I'm not a jumper.
No, she doesn't.
I
Falls
You are
and
now.
throws her leg when she does. So yeah, she jumped and screamed. I thought it was a rat.
And then I did not dare write them to thank them, because I was afraid as soon as I did, they'd be like, oh shit, we didn't mean to give that to her. That it was a mistake. I just kept waiting for it to
Oh,
be
God.
Or she thought, well, maybe they mean Best Script, like I had clean
I know,
margins,
it's just like that.
no typos.
Maybe it was my formatting. Yeah,
Situation on point.
it was crazy. So now we're actually, because of the award, my business partner and another guy that we've done a lot of creative stuff with. We did an animation with Joan Rivers with, and he directed our sitcom pilot that we produced in California or in Chicago. We're actually writing a sitcom, a different sitcom, but based on the script, based on Warm Cheese. So it's about a mother and daughter dysfunctional relationship rooted in Warm Cheese. Different characters. It's not my family. We're changing it quite a bit, but
Different cheese.
Different type of cheese.
different types of cheese. Yeah.
That's excellent.
That is
That's
so
exciting, and I can see that being really successful. I mean, I know just listening to your story, I think when you keep it so real, that's what people relate to and really appreciate. I feel that's what I relate to when it's just
And
very honest,
I think
Yeah.
as writers, yeah, I think as writers, and you both too. It's and people communicating and storytelling. I think that what's so fascinating about it is the more truth I write, the more I think people will never believe it. But that is consistent.
Sorry. Yeah.
Right? It's like when you write
Yeah.
the truth, you're like,
I don't even believe it sometimes, and
Yeah.
I lived it. I'm like, really? What kind of
Yeah.
surreal life did I just fall into? It's like some telenovela or something.
Yeah.
Sometimes
yeah,
bizarre.
but
I do think that because I've been doing spiritual things, for probably half my life now, and so people are always asking about this person or that person or this guru or that whatever, and um, I remember wanting to be apprenticed to somebody, and he said he doesn't do that anymore, and that he will only work with artists and storytellers because they're the only people that can, he said, flip the morphogene. He said they're the only ones that can change the world
Yeah.
at a level that it needs changing. That
Mm.
nobody needs another Bible, nobody needs another Ten Commandments, nobody needs another minister. That people who tell stories are the people that are the ministers, are the ones that are going to change the world. And when I think about popular culture and the things that have changed in huge, huge ways, that the world is changing because of storytellers and because of basketball players who won't play, or you know what I mean? It's like those people who are playing out the archetypal stories of their own life or this bigger thing are the ones that are changing and affecting the world. And I think that um, people tend to think about um, like spirituality or storytelling or whatever in terms of like who you know. Somebody said to me probably a few months ago, because I wrote something about somebody that I knew, and they were like, "You know almost as many famous people as Teresa Thome," and that was their takeaway from the thing. And people think about that. It's like, look at all the people that you know, but the reason that you know them is because they're empathetic to who you are, because you write things that interest them, or you write things that may translate out into something that will, you know, shift something, change the world or whatever. And man, it's not about 3 broadcast networks anymore or cable anymore, or there's like 500 mediums. I mean,
I know.
I hope this takes off. I hope everybody starts doing My Dinner With, and actually starts having conversations, because and we have a mutual friend named Rodney Vaccaro who's going to do a My Dinner With. And my thought with him was, how many times have I sat up with him over the course of half my life, or more than half of my life, like over 40 years, where we've had conversations that went on till the sun came up. And then when they were done, nobody heard a word of it. It's
Right,
like
right, sure.
that just went out into the ethers. And I'm totally jealous that you go down there, and you and like Cecily and other people get to hang out with him now. And
And I'll tell you, having Rodney there has made living apart, living in LA palatable. I mean, it's made it easier having a friend group.
Yeah.
But it reminds me, one night I was out with Rodney. He invited me to some friends of his, and he and I went and had dinner with like 6 of his friends. Beautiful, beautiful LA. I mean, just idyllic backyard overlooking the mountains, and just bottles of wine flowing in this beautiful home, and chatting all night long. And I met this guy, and he was really interesting, and he did audiobooks or something, or he was a voiceover person who wanted to do audiobooks.
He was an actor who wanted to do audiobooks.
And so I was like, oh, I want to hook him up with Fred. And I got home or the next day or whatever, and I sent an email to Fred, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just met the greatest guy, and you really like him, blah, blah, blah. And I sent him this message, and he sends me a note back, and he goes, it's nice to see you're dating.
The wording,
Well, we know your type now.
Yeah.
the wording was specifically a guy I had dinner with last night. He didn't mention and his wife. A guy, and believe me, I knew that whatever the situation was, it could have been a one-on-one dinner, but whatever it was, I knew it wasn't dating. But I also knew that that just didn't filter through her brain. The like for other people, like now don't be mad,
I'm mad.
Yeah.
But he was so Fred-like that I didn't miss you.
But it is going to what your point is. It's going to have, and Rodney and Cecily and I, it's.
Do they know Cecily?
He just mentioned Seth, so Ted
Oh,
must
yeah,
know
yeah.
Cecily from days gone by.
Not really. I don't really. I mean, there's so many people out there that, because we're all from theater, and for
Yeah.
those of you who don't know, that a lot of us are from theater here, like 3/4 of us. But the idea that we're all a big community, we all know each other, whatever. It's a different. But there are so many generations and so many iterations and so many different theaters, and Grand Rapids is an amazing theater town, and I mean that really on a national scale. It's really, really amazing what we've got here. But people just assume that we all know each other and hang out. And I think the last time I was with theater people was on a Zoom call with you guys, you and Patrick, Fubble Entertainment. And I had a mutual friend that I didn't even know was in theater or whatever. And so I get this message like the next day, and she says, "It's so great to meet the older generation of our theater."
Look, tell them about my
And
invitation.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there with all of these people, like
He's older than me.
Fred
So.
Fred Sobalski and Rodney is there, and in my eyes, I'm the kid. I was like 14 when I started theater, and all of these other people are the adults. And so when I see them on the screen, I feel like one of the kids, and I realize like the other people on the screen and some people who were just lurking off screen all thought I was like one of the old people. And I guess in a weird way, relatively, I am one of the old people, but I just look up to those people so much.
Yeah.
And not just because they're older than me, but because when you start talking about stories and things like that, for every story I know, a Rodney or a Fred or somebody, they know hundreds and hundreds of stories, and they are storytellers. And I have this memory of being in theater as a teenager and just sitting at the Adobe or at the Cottage Bar, listening to these guys tell story after story after story. That was just hilarious, and I just feel like I'm a pale, remainder of that tradition. And we used to go to the Adobe restaurant, which was a Mexican restaurant on Sundays,
Oh, yeah.
because they had beer. They were the only ones that served beer, and plus they had chips and cheese, and bean dip was free, and you could like just eat your face off and drink beer and be a teenager, and the drinking age was different and everything then. And there would be these old guys sitting around a round table in the middle. We'd all be on high bar seats and in booths around them, and you had these guys they seemed ancient to me, but you would see Ken Tepper or Rodney or Ron Savage or Jim Burr or all of these guys who were just amazing storytellers. And I grew up thinking that every town was like that and every theater was like that. And it wasn't until I actually went out in the real world and realized how special these guys are, and I just feel like I'm a next generation of them, and so I don't tell stories nearly as much or as well as they do, but I watch less television than people younger than me.
I'll tell you, This
While you're
unfortunately.
talking, I'm going to grab a little more.
Okay. This unfortunately is comes a little bit too late for this year. But are you aware of the River City Raconteurs?
That's
No,
familiar to me. It's
Yeah,
familiar.
yeah. No, I would love to. I
Okay.
like the name.
Yeah, the it's usually the last Friday of each summer month, June, July, and August. But sometimes they mix it up a bit. But it is one Friday night towards the end of those months, and they meet at Blanford Nature Center around a bonfire, and it's open mic storytelling.
Oh my
You
goodness.
need to be there.
I do need to be there. Not only do I love storytelling, I love bonfires, and usually
Yeah.
we end the year at Wheatland, and sit around and listen to amazing musicians. We don't even watch the big acts anymore. We sit in a circle and listen to songwriters and players
Yeah.
just playing together
It's
and singing.
amazing.
And I'm one of the only Indonesian gospel singers that I know. But
I promise you. Now, here's the bad news.
yeah,
I've invited a number of people, or at least I've told them about it, and some of them have gotten excited until I tell them it doesn't start until 9 p.m. And you have no idea how many people go, "Oh my gosh, I've been asleep for 2 hours by then."
Being the older set now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
do you remember like not even knowing what you were gonna wear for the night at 9 o'clock?
You wouldn't show up anywhere.
Right, you
Before
wouldn't dare.
10?
You wouldn't dare show up anywhere before 9 o'clock.
No.
And
You were just
you were
starting to
still
get
sitting. You were still sitting in your underwear at 9. Yeah.
That so funny. Oh my gosh. So true.
Yeah.
Well,
I feel that though.
I'm insomniac, so I have no problem sitting up all night long, especially if people are telling stories or singing. You know, if people are singing.
Well, I promise you, come next summer, I will remind you. I will confirm
Yes.
the date. I'll send you the
All right.
Facebook page and all of that stuff. And
We'll go. It'll be a date.
yeah,
Little mandate.
and
Oh,
Sweet.
Fred, I have to tell you. I have to tell you this story, and Teresa too, because one of the places that I got to know you really well was at the Great Lakes.
Oh God.
It was the Great Lakes. You know,
oh
the
yeah,
spiritual conference.
a retreat.
Yeah.
Beautiful
Retreat.
retreat on a campus with like 100 and some people who had all been like going there for like 40 years. It was like
Yes.
you and I were like youngsters compared to everybody there, and so I made lots of friends there, and for some reason they never asked me back. But I'll tell you what the real reason was later, because that's a totally different story. But I got a Facebook friend request, and somebody like friend requested me, and I said, "Oh, I remember her." And so I said, "Okay, yeah, sure, I'll friend you." And then like 3 weeks later, she goes, "I had no idea you were married. I thought you and Fred Stella were a couple." So like
Yay.
Fred and I were like would have like lunch.
So cute. We think he's so cute.
Fred and I would have like lunch together and stuff, and then we did this thing where we sang kirtan yoga, and so I knew Fred did kirtan and I did kirtan, and so the people would bring their musical instruments and stuff like that, and I said, well, we should do that, and I said, I have my robes here because I'm going on after this to some other place, and you said, boy, if I'd known that. And so I said, well, I have 2 of those robes. And so I gave you one of those robes. We go to dinner. So there we are dressed exactly alike, you know. And then we go.
Colors, but
Yeah, different colors, same robe, looking thoroughly Hindu. And then going and doing kirtan together as if we do it all the time, you know. I think I've sang a couple times with you. But I am, you know that couple on Saturday Night Live that one of them sings and the other one sings the exact same thing with them. It's like an improv game.
Yeah.
That's how I do kirtan, right? It's like if I know 6 words from the song, suddenly I'm harmonizing, and I'm all jaima about everything, and so people just like probably assume that we like knew each other and hung out, but I've never actually hung out with you until that week.
That's true. And we did hang out a lot.
And so yeah, I totally okay. I wasn't going to tell this story, but
Oh no.
somebody said to me, the reason that they didn't ask you back is because they thought you were having an affair with this other person. I won't say that other person's name, whatever, but a totally sweet person, totally like not, hanging out with me or whatever, or wearing my other robe or anything. That was another thing that somebody thought was, that we had hooked up at this thing.
I'm
so
jealous.
Anybody, I know, but it's like, people talk about band camp. Well, spiritual camp has all of that kind of drama and stuff
Too
like
much
that.
drama.
And so, someday we will get asked back, and
Oh,
and-
that's hilarious.
we will wear matching rings. And
I was
I
at
was just going to ask you to tell that.
I was
Give me
at
the
a-
wine, please.
I was at a party one time, and I mean, we live apart 6 months out of the year, off and on, and I mean, we're very independent people. Even when we didn't live apart, we were still very independent people. We'd go places differently and whatever. So Gene Bailey was throwing a party, a solstice party, and he went with his brother, and I showed up later, and hi, whatever, blah, 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 hanging out. Everybody's talking to everybody at the party. And near the end of the party, I'm sitting on the couch with this guy that I had just met, and he was gay, and we were just chatting away and hit it off, blah, blah, blah. Well, then Fred and his brother came up to me, and they were like, okay, we're leaving. And he went, hey, I'm going to leave. And I was like, okay, I'll see you later. Good to see you. Take care, blah, 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 whatever. It was, I'm going to see him in 10 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever. So they leave. And the guy sitting next to me on the couch goes, oh, they're cute. And I went, yeah. And he goes, yeah. And he goes, and I kind of looked at him. That's what it was. I was kind of like, yeah. And he goes, they're so cute. They're such a cute couple. And I went, my husband and his brothers.
Okay, that's the kinkiest story I've ever heard.
Okay.
It has everything.
That one, Teresa. That's part of your sitcom.
Crazy.
I think
Oh, my
that
God.
for a number of reasons, like for spiritual reasons, I have an earring on the right ear, but also because I'm Indonesian and because it has significance to get a silver earring when you see the North Star, and so it has a spiritual significance and stuff like that. But in the United States, that tradition went to the Navy and to sailors, and from sailors it went into gay culture, and the village people, and so a lot of times people meet me, and just because I have an earring on the right ear, they just assume that, and so when I
wouldn't know that.
when I lived in
Southern Cross.
when I lived in Big Sur, yeah. So if you're on the other side of the world, when you see the Southern Cross for the first time, to quote an old song that probably a lot of people don't remember, is that was the ritual, was to get your ear pierced when you were able to see the polar star from either side or whatever. And that's where that sort of tradition comes from. But now it has sort of become a symbol of being gay and stuff. And think of myself as being overly masculine or underly masculine. I think I'm fairly androgynous, but I think that a lot of times when I meet people, they're shocked that I too have a trophy wife. But I don't know where I was going with that. But I do think that
My spiritual tradition,
yeah.
we wear tiaras
Well, I was going to actually ask you, Kate, because I'm like, wait a second, whoa, as my husband would do.
What?
Yeah, that. Um, you actually, he has to do it for me. It gives me a headache. But you speak about earth religions in classrooms? I mean, that's
Well,
crazy
I know it is.
in a good way.
In a good way. There's a woman years ago. I had a shop that was called Stella, and I sold various spiritual items, from all different paths and faiths. A little bit like Spirit Dreams that's in town,
Mhm,
except
mhm.
I always felt personally, I felt like theirs was safer, and I didn't really feel like being safe. So, I would have the devil's shoestring or the graveyard dirt or the various candles, or I would do special order things that for people who were interested in going a little bit deeper with some of those things.
Like 6 feet deep.
Like 6 feet. So anyway, I totally forgot where I was going. Anyway, so at one point in time, a young man came in to my store. I think he was like 15 at the time. I count him as one of my kids. I have a lot of kids, and even though by birth, that I've actually my DNA children, I have 4. I feel like Ted's kids are my kids, even though they're not totally related. Spiritually, I feel like they're related. I count them as mine. And then beyond that, I have a lot of other people that I've met that I feel like they're my kids. And he was one of them. He came into my shop, and I think he was about 15. And he had recently come out to his family that he was gay, and he was having some little bit of trouble with his mom and his stepdad, and his father had passed away when he was really, really young, and he was totally into Wicca at the time, and he still is. I don't know if it's specifically Wicca or if he's sort of morphed it, but we talked, and I always felt like he was one of my kids. I just and he went to a school that was out in a rural area in, outside of town, and felt he was out as a witch and as a gay witch at a time in high school when I thought that was really, really brave. So he made a really good connection with one of his teachers, and this particular teacher, um, although Christian, she's very open-minded, and she's also has family from Ireland, and I think if you're Irish, or even anywhere over in that general vicinity, somewhere in the UK. There are so many stories, mythologies, tales, things that are really magical. You can't help but feel that and have some of that in your DNA, And so this particular teacher, he told her about me, and she did this thing at the end of the year. Every year in their high school, they would have what they called an interim, which the students could choose to take these sort of extracurricular classes that they were interested in for the last, I think it was 2 weeks of school, of high school. And the thing that she offered was world religions. So she would have speakers come in, or they would take field trips out. Like they went over to see you, Fred, and they talked about the Hindu culture and the religion. And she would, they went to visit a synagogue, and they did, all sorts of different things to expose these kids to various religions, which I thought was great because these kids were like out in rural areas that they just don't have much exposure to any of these things. And so she had me come in to talk about earth religions. So which encompasses so much. And there's not, it's not like we have a Bible or we don't have anything written down, and everything is so fluid. And you could talk about Native American earth religions, you could talk about European earth religions, you could, it's just, there's so much. It was sometimes tough to sort of give within like 1 hour period a very brief overview of What was that?
It was thunder. Oh my gosh, it just scared the.
Was that thunder? Oh my goodness. That didn't
I'm
even sound.
I'm like, oh,
I thought
LA,
it was it.
LA earthquake.
I thought it was one
That
of
was like that was weird.
Hmm.
I'm used to the neighborhood and lots of noise here, but that was different. So, but anyway, so I mean, for me, tiaras are not part of my. That's my personal religion. It's not like part of an earth religion, but it was really great to be able to share that with those kids, and how many kids had very real questions. And I always loved going into a class, because you go into a high school class and get all these high school students, and they're like, sitting on their desk. I'm like, what is this going to be? Or they're putting their head down, or they're trying to be really rude on purpose, and I just whatever, I ignored them and just started talking, and before you know it, they're like this, and like whatever, and then all of a sudden they're like, then they'd be like sitting up, and then they'd start asking questions, and I loved to do that, and so many of them, which kind of hurts in a way, because I think as children we grow up with this idea, we see things differently, our perception of the world is different, and it's magical, and we can, maybe, like, for me personally, I moved around a lot, but in one place, I used to love to climb up these particular apple trees that we had in our yard, and I would talk to the apple tree, or I would walk through another place we lived. I'd walk through the woods because I was looking for fairies. I ran into a pack of wild dogs that time, which was a little interesting. I didn't find the fairies, but the wild dogs found me. I was okay. But another story. But as children, when you grow, it's like everything is possible. Everything is magical. All of these different worlds are readily available to us, and then gradually we get shut down and shut down and shut down. Like, be logical, be practical, even when I would talk about, well, I want to be an artist when I grow up or something. It's like, well, that's nice, but you should have a backup plan. You should go to school, maybe business. How about business? Do you like a business degree? I'm like, no, I want to be an artist.
Let me ask you this, Kate.
But,
Kate,
pardon?
is there one question one question that you tend to get asked more than others?
Yeah.
What
I
is
mean,
it?
I think that, like I said, as they were ready to open up and they were ready to ask questions, because so many of those kids had had psychic experiences, supernatural experiences with ghosts or premonitions, or different things that had happened to them that they didn't understand and they didn't feel like they could talk about. And to be able to talk to these kids and say, you know what, that's really actually normal, and is part of our humanity, as part of who we are, and how we've survived for so long. It's just that now, you think about, we live inside, we live in houses, we don't live in nature. We're not in tune to the storms or the thunder or the seasons. I mean, if we were outside, we would have smelled that, we would have seen that, we would have felt the electricity in the air. We wouldn't have been surprised. We know these things because we're in touch with it. But we buy our food in grocery stores. We don't raise it. For the most part, we don't raise it. We don't butcher it. We don't collect it. We don't gather it. We're not in tune. And so that I think that things, they call it supernatural, I feel like it's just very natural. We've just lost touch with that. And so many of these kids have been taught that that's wrong or bad or evil or scary. And it was good to be able to talk to them and say, you know what, it's okay. It's okay to experience those things, and you're not crazy, and you're not a bad person, and you're not evil. And this is part of being human, that we can do this. So I really appreciated being able to go in, and even though I was only, talking to really relatively few people, it felt important to me, because, yeah, I'm kind of a mom. I kind of a mom person. I just sort of felt like they're all my kids, and I want to be able to help them in some small way, to maybe even if it just releases some of that pressure of feeling like you're odd or bad. I hate to think of kids thinking of themselves as being bad people when they're not.
Yeah, that's very good. I'm sure that you awakened something in them.
It was fun. I did enjoy it. I miss talking to people, like being where we are now, and even just speaking with you virtually. I'm so glad that we have this technology and the opportunity, but I do miss hugs. You know, I went right out. I saw somebody today that I haven't seen for a long time, and I just went right up and hugged her. Didn't even think about it. Right afterwards, I'm like, I wasn't wearing a mask, and I didn't, didn't think about this, and I didn't, and it's just sort of like, God, this really stinks, because it was just
Hard. We need
instinct. I just like, but it felt so good to hug somebody. It's just
Have you guys done any social distancing outside stuff with people or anything like that?
little bit, just a little. We just did
Yeah.
the other week, last weekend with some friends of ours, and like my youngest gets really nervous about it still. I mean, my kids are asthmatic, and certainly Ted has like all sorts of stuff that he really shouldn't be exposed to.
Everything but pregnancy.
Yeah, except for he could check off everything on the list except for pregnancy. I've been working on it, but so far nothing's happened.
Yeah, my poor sister,
It is.
she's not compromised, but her husband is immunocompromised terribly.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
she can't do anything because she can't risk exposing him to anything.
Right.
But we think about that with our kids in school and everything. And fortunately, the people that we went to visit, who Fred knows Mike because you interviewed Mike Hintz. So Mike and his husband have their kids over there, and they've already been exposed. Both of their girls um, are had coronavirus and have the antibodies right now. One of them actually goes out twice a week and sells her blood, sells her plasma because she has the antibody and stuff. But it still is very, very, very strange and weird to me. Partially because even on a good day, every single thing that I experience, like my autoimmune system, and I'm diabetic, I've had heart attacks, I've had triple bypass, I've had spinal meningitis, I've had, it's like I have the whole list,
He's lucky to be alive
of
right
things.
now.
Yeah, it's like, I'm the walking medical miracle. But so many things that put me at risk. And I tend to be very social, and this was a sort of a miracle today. There's this house across the street from us that's been abandoned for literally since we've moved here. Um, and and people haven't been buying this house, and the deals have fallen through because basically we live in the hood, and any given day, like today on our driveway, there was a huge craps game going on, right? Every single night, somebody parks right in front of our house, turns their bass speakers up to like 100 to advertise the fact that if you need something as you walk away from the only store in our whole neighborhood, and this is the only road you can walk down, that there's a drug deal going on in front of our house just about any time of day, right? But mostly at night, until an hour after the store shuts down and stuff. So, like, every time anybody's wanted to buy this house, I'm pretty sure they just like go through the neighborhood and see all these guys. 99% of them are totally harmless guys, and a lot of them are just hilarious guys. But it's not a good look to sell a house. And
They're kind of scary looking if you don't know who they are.
and so like a couple of nights ago, the lights were on in the house, and there was a car parked in the garage in the driveway at like 4 a.m.
Mm.
And um, and so in the last months, we've had the police call to this house like probably 10 times. And, somebody's passed out in the back, or somebody lit the mattress on fire that they were sleeping and peeing on behind the house. And,
Oh, there you go.
and like all of these reasons why somebody wouldn't buy this house and stuff. And so today, Kate's out front yelling, and I go out there, and not only has somebody bought the house, but it's our friend.
It's a friend of ours.
It's a friend of ours, right?
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah, and totally the right person to buy this house. And I said to Kate last week, as I was mail ordering my Amazon Lakshmi
That's right.
to go with my Ganesha altar, that we need a mother energy here, but a fierce one that is not going to take it. And because Kate was saying all of these guys in our neighborhood, they're all just really big kids. Really, they are. They're these big boys, and stuff. And so we said, like, we need like a mother energy that is at once positive and giving and prosperous and whatever, but also doesn't take shit from anybody and stuff.
Mhm.
So I got my Lakshmi
She
in the
does
mail
it.
the day before
I love
yesterday,
her.
because I'm Indonesian, and Ganapati is like our national. We don't actually have the Hindu religion; we just have Ganesha, and Ganesha's stepmom, and so typically in an Indonesian altar, you would have Lakshmi. But last week, realizing that Kamala Harris is Kamala Devi Harris,
Mhm.
and that mom is a devotee of Lakshmi, and took her to puja there, it's like, this is the kind of Lakshmi we need. Somebody who's fierce, and somebody who is like, who is a mom, who is a stepmom, or
She's a Lakshmi that's got a little Kali in her.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And so
That's my
so
favorite,
there's
Kali.
this Tridivi energy, that we need somebody who can turn her face to this other energy whenever we need that, but not on just a national level, but here in our neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
We have all of these big overgrown boys taking their stimulus money, and all they're doing is drinking and gambling with it, right? They're taking their kids' money away from them, and whatever the thing is. So it's like, nobody is going to move into that house who isn't going to be just as bad as the people who are out in the street right now, or we thought worse, like in our neighborhood, everybody's afraid that Karen will move in across the street.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah.
I look like Karen.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't know what to do with me.
But the thing is that calling the cops in this neighborhood is the worst thing you can do to anybody. So we're praying, and we're like, we got to have this sort of like energy that is a Lakshmi, Kamala Kali energy,
Kamala Kali.
somebody who is not afraid to take care of these guys, and they will listen to her.
Yeah.
Like, if I go out there and say something, it just escalates. But all of a sudden, like, our friend shows up, and she's totally that, and it's like,
That's so exciting.
oh, she's spent more money on her tattoos than they have on all their gambling in all of their life, and she has no problem going out there like telling them to like go home to wherever they came from at any time, or whatever. Anyways, it's so like it's just like this like Christmas miracle or whatever.
Yeah.
And so she's like the kind of person that just comes up and just hugs you and stuff. So I hugged her and realized I had not hugged anyone.
Yeah, that same.
Since
like,
March.
You feel like, whoops.
and it was like, oh my God, I just like hugged a person, and I'm not wearing a shirt, and she's like not hardly wearing a shirt either. And it was like the kind of hug you wouldn't have thought of before March.
Yeah.
But
It's fun. I don't know if you
nowadays,
guys do this, but when you're watching stuff, like I was,
yes.
Todd Lewis and I were editing on our documentary today, and
Uh-huh.
we were looking at, we're doing a community theater documentary,
Yeah.
and we were logging some footage from
Mhm.
thoroughly modern Millie rehearsals, and it was like a chorus line of actors, and they were all taking a drink and passing the drink and taking the drink and passing the drink, and I was like, yeah, that's not
And then
gonna
you're like panicking.
happen. Like, when is that ever coming back into?
Isn't that weird? Yeah.
I'm amazed that all of my theater friends all over the country are talking about how they're doing theater. You know,
I'm
and
directing a show right now
oh, my
for
friend
other
Nikki was
role
talking.
players, and it is
Yeah.
the weirdest. It's so funny. I was talking to I'm taking an acting class from the guy who actually directed my play, who's a California writer and director. He's done very well for himself, and he's done a couple of his plays on camera and on Zoom, like the Zoom readings kind of thing. And one of the things, and I was talking to somebody else about it, maybe it wasn't Stan that I was talking to about this, but we were talking about the fact that, first of all, do you call it theater if you're doing it on Zoom? What constitutes theater? Second of all, theater has always evolved, and when theater in its origins of doing it around the campfire or whatever, back in Greek times, like how theater evolved, was originally in outdoor venues. When they brought it inside, did people go, that's not theater? Like, theater has to be happening outside. That's what theater is. And then all of a sudden it went inside. Now it's going in front of little boxes of cameras where people are not in the same room. Is that theater? But we're actually doing. I think that the play that we're doing lends itself well enough because it's kind of educational as much as it is emotional and impactful.
It's intimate.
It's very intimate. It's only it's 5 actors, but we're doing it in front of green screen, and we're going to do costumes. And we're going to edit the piece, and it'll be interesting to see how it comes together. But, excuse me, directing, me here, them in little boxes, it's so bizarre. And the thing that's so interesting about it is you can't play the camera in the same way that you would for film. Like, in film, there's an intimate relationship with the camera, so you can play it very intimately, very soft, but with Zoom and this kind of stuff, you have to almost be as animated as you're projecting to the back row. There's something about the way that the camera of a Zoom takes you in that is different than a film camera or a film. Don't you agree?
I've never thought of that, but I'm processing it as you're saying it. Yeah,
I saw that during the Democratic National Convention, and I wrote this the other day. Is that Obama, when he was in 2004 and he was a senator, filled a stadium with his presence and his charisma and his voice, and delivered the greatest speech that to this day I had ever heard. And so 2004 senatorial keynote speech that was over in Boston was the most amazing speech that I had ever heard. And I compare all other speeches, including his, to that speech. And then last Monday, Michelle Obama sat in front of a camera and spoke in conversational tones in a way that was intimate and direct and not full of any kind of projection or histrionics or anything. But the substance of what she was saying and the ability that she had to command the medium and also grab that moment. I mean, literally, because our expectations of a Democratic National Convention is all of this hype and hoopla and people speaking to the delegates and really um, really projecting themselves in really overblown ways to people in a stadium, all of a sudden she was like, here's your mom, like
Yeah, it was
having,
so different. And I don't know if you know, do you know Pod Save America? It's a podcast, but it's
yeah, yeah,
it's one of the speechwriters, and they all worked for Obama. That John Favreau
right,
is
right.
one of Obama's speechwriters, and they were talking about that, which was really interesting. And they said how different it is to write speeches, because before
Mhm.
they would write speeches, like you write a speech for a room versus writing a speech for a camera. And he's like, man, did Michelle Obama's speechwriters get it right in terms of
Yeah.
having her sit down. And even, but then they said,
Yeah.
but Kamala having her stand was a good thing, but
Mhm.
how
Yeah.
you would write, like you have to create a different pacing and you have to create a different energy. Like you
Yep.
can't, he's like, before you would write a joke knowing that it would play to a room, whereas now if you write a joke, it's not
There's no
gonna,
laugh.
there's no laugh. It's not
Yeah.
gonna play to the audience.
There's no response. There's no, yeah.
Although,
So
did
weird.
you see
I
the
was,
Republican? Did you see the Republican National
Yeah.
Convention at all? That crazy
yeah.
manipulating?
Uh-huh. It was, I compare it to, because I pretty much for many years of my life sat through every Amway convention that there was, and it was that kind of overblown jingoism and stuff like that. But I was thinking about Kamala's speech too, because she has to sort of be presidential. At the same time, she has to be intimate. At the same time, she has to sort of bust down the barriers of what people believe about her. And so when she dropped her candidacy, um, there was a lot of things that people believed about her that she had to change right away. And I realized that Obama, right before her, took on the role of the teacher and the person that was going to give the grave warning and talk about history and give us a context and be the bad cop, and make the and take the opportunity to actually take it to Trump. And then when she came on, she could be totally herself. She could tell us stories about her childhood. She could share with herself. She could be authentic as she possibly could, as well as having a distance from the camera and stuff that was different than what Michelle did. So she wasn't talking to me, she was talking to the country.
Yes.
And she showed how much she could do that. So here's like the same medium, the same convention, the same overall messaging, and they understood it. There were really smart people talking about how do you work this particular medium and stuff. And then the next week, all of that knowledge that I had learned went totally out the window. And maybe fortunately so, because no matter what you say, if it rings false, if it sounds overblown, even if it's true, because I think there were things that people were saying that were actually true, that because it was so overblown and so jingoistic and so much in the context of things that we just heard that we don't believe at all, that the true things fell by the wayside, and
But but they were speaking, it's interesting because, I actually stepped away from the news today, and I'm a news junkie, and because of the convention last night, and it was just too painful to
Mhm.
see the reports of, well, Trump did an effective job last night, and the gap is narrowing, and Trump is all of a sudden gaining in the polls again, and the messaging that the Republicans actually did a better job than anybody had anticipated for the week, and I just can't. I just don't. We can't win. We just can't win.
I don't, the feeling, because I have like Because sometimes, like when you eat a really bad meal, you have to do mouthwash and whatever. I watched Kamala's speech from yesterday
I did
because she
not
was
see it,
delivering
but
at
I've
the
heard
same
about
time.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
good.
and not
it.
only did she do it in a half hour.
Do it. I mean, the people who are watching
Yeah.
Fox News aren't watching Kamala's speech.
Yeah,
The people that we need to
yeah,
flip,
yeah.
to
But I
protect
think
that
about
gerrymandering bullshit.
when we look at the numbers that happened. They started out with 18 million people watching on Monday, and that's way under what the Democrats had on their Monday.
Yeah.
Not to mention what they had on their Thursday.
You had
And
4
it got
million less
worse.
people watching his speech. Trump did 4 million
Yeah.
less people than something like
And
that.
so, I mean, even worse than their own last convention, watching him before. And I got to think that what this means is that as horrible as it seems, there are so many signs right now that people aren't buying it, that people are stepping
Hope
away
so.
from it, that people don't want to believe it anymore or hear it anymore. And also, when I think about like 15 million people watching a speech, when over 20 million watched it 4 years ago, that says something to me, you know.
Mhm.
Partially it says that they've all heard it before, but the other thing that it says to me is that I don't believe that the 108 million people that didn't vote last time tuned in to see if they could be convinced. And I think that if you are part of the 60 some million people who were the base and the 60 even more million people that were the winning team that lost the last time, that it says a lot about the 100+ million people that didn't vote. That there isn't a ball of energy that makes people want to come forward. And part of it is to bring it back around to us, because it really is about us. Is that part of it is that people's expectations within the last 6 months have been changed in terms of education and entertainment and everything, simply by Zoom and by this kind of a thing, where it has been years since we have looked each other in the eye, since we have talked face to face, that we have talked, and we have tried really, really hard not to have stuff in the background. I mean, how many times have you been to a restaurant where all you have is televisions blaring and ceilings that are twice as high as you ever remembering them being, because you grew up in the 70s or 80s when every single restaurant had a drop ceiling that was like this high over your head. And they were all acoustical tiles,
Yeah.
so you
Mhm.
could have conversations and stuff like that. And I really think that the ability for us to communicate face to face and actually have these kind of conversations, because um, I'm pretty clear that I'm talking to the choir here, but the idea that somebody else can go and grab this and have this conversation because they watched this conversation, and it never occurred to them before that Obama's speech in 2004 was nothing like, Michelle's, was nothing like Trump's, and was nothing like anything. I mean, we don't think in those terms, and when the people who actually run the government don't think in those terms either. Like, I'll give you an example. Ivanka Trump took all of the talking points that Trump was going to say and said it faster, better, clearer, and more convincingly in 10 minutes than what he did for an hour and a half afterwards. So she literally stole his thunder and made him sound redundant and rambling, because she was clear and she was on point. And so there are like two different people who think of themselves as masters of the medium right now, and one of them destroyed the other. I mean, she
But
trumped her
you have
father.
capacity to see that and understand that, Ted. You have the capacity.
There's a lot of low education, low information voters out there.
Low information bars.
But I'm still with you. I'm much more optimistic than she is.
I'm just scared to death.
Well,
Like I just.
it is that even if you don't know it,
I don't feel good about it at
Yeah.
all.
But you know what, Kate? I posted I started it right after George Floyd, the George Floyd murder. I started an anti-racism dialogue group. And one of the things that I just posted on today was the Michigan phone bank,
Mhm.
the information to do the Michigan phone bank. And he's been phone banking for Hillary Stolten. And what I wrote on the post to the group, to our anti-racism group, was I had zero desire to do phone banking. I'm not a fan of it. I did it for Hillary. It's
Clinton?
yes. It is a painful in my mind. When I did it, the thought of doing it is very painful. When I did it for Hillary, it was easy. I was like, oh, this isn't terrible. I've canvassed before. Every time I canvass, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this with every ounce of my being, and then I canvass and I feel better about it. It's just something that I have to force myself to do.
Yeah.
But I posted today, I have to phone bank because this is, as I'm doing this play, the play that I'm doing on Anne Frank and Emmett Till, when Otto Frank is saying, who knew this is what the country was turning into? Why didn't I do more? We know this is where our country is heading. And it's like, I can't not do something. So I'm, as much as it makes me want to vomit, as I listen to him calling person after person, getting hung up on and going, I'm here calling on behalf of Hillary Stolten. Hello. It's like, but there are some people you engage, and it's like, I have to do something. We have to do something, and if it's giving $2 to a campaign or something, I mean, I just think we have to do something. Or making sure that our votes, or it's
I think about this.
bad right now.
I think about this all the time, and I say it all the time. The election was won by 70,000 votes in 5 states. That's what threw the whole election.
2 people in every precinct in Michigan. It was
less than 2. Yeah. Yep. So 11,000 votes with just basically that many. That's like a cryptozoology sighting. And I think
it's doing a little better.
It's a sign, and so we've had a cat kind of a day too.
Yeah,
but when I think about that, the idea that there was only that many people, or that our party, abandoned Kent County because Doug Jones won, and that 30,000 Democrats, 30,000 good people stayed home because they were sure that Hillary was going to win, and they didn't want to have to vote for the Bernie crap. It's like we
don't have that problem this time. I really don't.
When I was
totally.
when I was doing the phone banking the last time for Hillary, I was in LA, and I actually went to go phone bank for Hillary.
You from LA? You did it? Wow.
What's that?
You did it from LA? That's awesome.
I did. And they gave us Michigan was the state that we were phone banking, and which was so crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, my home state. And Democrat after Democrat after Democrat was like, I can't do it. I can't vote for her. And I made a decision. That was 1 week before the election, and I went, she is not going to win. Like, I just knew it. I just knew based on the way the Democrats were behaving. I'm like, she's not going to win. I can't be in LA I have a roommate, but I'm like, I cannot be without my husband the day that they elect. The day that they elect Donald Trump. Like, I can't do this. This is just, I'm like, I can't be without my husband. I need my emotional support system. Yeah. And so I actually bought a ticket and flew home that night because I was like, this is But I knew it from phone banking. I got the energy from phone banking that she wasn't going to win because
Yeah.
registered Democrats would not vote for her.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was the issue.
So we got to get registered Democrats to vote for Crazy Joe.
Speaking of community involvement, I'm putting myself on the line to better my community tomorrow by working for our dumpster day. We have an annual dumpster day where the whole neighborhood gets to bring junk for free to a big parking lot, and we take care of it for them. We put it in other people's yards, but
Nice.
no, we got these big dumpsters. Anyway, so I've got to be up very early.
Yeah.
So I'm going to beg that we bid adieu for the evening.
Well, I thoroughly have enjoyed
Well, just
your
our 10th person.
words. And yeah, you know what? I think we totally have to do this again. I think all of these, because this is the last time we did one of these, was the first time I did one of these, was like, oh my God, it's just starting to get good. And we really are just starting to figure out what to do and how to say and whatever the thing is. And part of it is that we're just trying to figure out the technology. And I'm a Luddite. Like, I knew exactly what you meant when you did this, you know. Like, some people have no idea. They're thinking like.
Wait, I gotta tell you something though.
But I know.
I gotta tell you something real quick, because she's right. I'm phone banking for Hillary Skolton, and I'm on the phone with a guy, and I'm asking questions about what does it entail, because I've never done this before.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, the first thing you have to do if they answer is make sure they don't hang up on you. And I said, I got that covered. I said, no problem. Anytime I'm having to call somebody and they don't know me and I want to talk to them and I don't want to hang up, I can keep them on the line. He goes, really? How do you do it? I say, they pick up, they say hello. First words out of my mouth are, we have your daughter.
You're horrible.
Which is weird because they don't have a daughter.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
And suddenly they feel guilty, you know, about that one night kankakee.
Oh, God.
I mean, that's a whole lot of content, like, hello? I have your daughter. I don't have a daughter. Is this 477-82223? No, 22. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Did I disturb you? No, wait. Have a wonderful day. You too.
You know what this means.
Yeah.
So I, first of all, want to thank everybody who is spying on us. Also, all of the people who will spy on us, because as soon as this is over, within minutes, this will be like available. And so the last guy I talked to actually took pieces of it and put it on his YouTube, including his rap. He left out my rap because I beat his ass. Did you hear that, Ragnar?
I'm sorry.
And so I want people to do this, and I really want to encourage people to have their own dinners with. I have not patented this because I stole the idea myself, and I want to thank you for being our first couple.
Yeah, it was fun for me.
And I am always totally open to. I won't say this to everybody, but to you guys, I feel like there's so much more that we need to talk about, including all of the famous people that you know, Teresa, and also the famous incarnations that Fred is that he's not sharing with us. I totally want you guys to watch us when Rodney's here. And
yeah. We'll totally. And it looks like you can, but you can't see the questions.
Yeah. Well, I think that on some nights we'll open it and some nights we won't, just depending on how many people and who's there or whatever. Fred, Kenneth Kessler is going to be here, and he's Swami Ramananda, and a guy that you would totally like to hear talking. But also, Teresa, you would too, because he's totally show business, and
he's fun.
He's fun.
He's so fun.
And he's so Well, I mean, his form of yoga is about happiness, and so he's totally, his book is Bliss now, and so I want to invite all you guys back. But when we have time, and as we cycle through these, whenever you guys want to come and have another dinner date, we totally want to have that.
Hopefully
happen.
one day in person.
And yeah,
Yeah,
really,
someday this COVID
maybe
will go
someday
away.
we'll do it in person, and people
I'd
can
like that.
watch on a 2-camera shot.
Yes.
In one.
Last minute plug too. I'm performing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm ministering at Unity Church in Ada this Sunday,
Oh, great.
10:30. Anybody?
What's your topic?
Forgiveness.
How amazing my wife is. Is that it?
Yeah,
It's
forgiveness.
about
That's what he was saying. Forgiveness. Yeah.
It's forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
Good
Yeah.
Tell my wife
topic.
to forgive me. Okay.
All the time, every day.
I will be there the week after you. Actually, I'm off first Sundays
Excellent.
till October, and man, we are Christian icons.
Yes, there you go. I love
Who
it.
would have thought?
Yay.
Fred, you know I only go there for the donuts, so don't tell them that.
All right,
They
guys.
have the best
Thank
time.
you.
All right.
So good to talk
Thank
to
you.
you.
Good to talk
Have a
to you.
great
Yeah,
night.
it really was.
You have a great night.
Have a great night.
You too.
Talk to you again soon. Hopefully.